Hello, everyone. Today's topic is the true measure of a person. Let's learn from Buddha. Sakyamuni Buddha, who lived about 2600 years ago, was around at a time when Vedic Brahmanism was the dominant ideology of India. One notable and notorious aspect of Brahmanism is its caste system, wherein people are valued based on the social class they are born into. Even today, now that colonial-era laws enforcing this caste system have been repealed and the country's constitution bans caste discrimination, the notion of caste remains deeply entrenched in India. A key aspect of the Buddhist teachings, however, is a distinct lack of discrimination in this regard. Buddha never categorized people based on lineage, race, or any other such attribute. Instead, he evaluated people based on something that was rather more within each individual's own control. What exactly was that? Let us explore what it was that Buddha taught on this. Today, we will cover 1. Three kinds of deeds. 2. Why is the mind seen as being so important? 3. Why we cannot neglect the mind. In verse 396 of the Dhammapada, Sakyamuni Buddha said, I do not call one a Brahmin simply due to being born from a particular mother's womb, someone who owns nothing and clings to nothing, that one I say is a Brahmin. Here, Brahmin means a respectable, virtuous person, and Sakyamuni was saying that it is not one's lineage or bloodline that makes one virtuous, but rather one's conduct or actions. So this was how Buddha evaluated people, not by income, education, knowledge, appearance, clothing, blood type, race, or lineage, but by their actions. Actions are therefore highly important in Buddhism, and it is taught that there are three kinds of actions: actions of the mind, actions of the mouth, and actions of the body. Usually, the word actions refers to deeds of the body, but Buddhism considers deeds of the mouth and the mind to be actions too. Whatever we say to others counts as actions, and the same goes for all the thoughts we have, even if we don't physically or verbally act upon them. That means, then, that every time we curse someone in our hearts or wish someone would go away, we've actually performed an action. It's not only bad thoughts, however, if we think about how thankful we are towards someone, for instance, that too is an action. Buddhism evaluates people by the deeds we carry out with our minds, mouths, and bodies. Everything we think, say, and do. And every day, we do all sorts of different things, even just within the span of a few minutes. A lecturer, for instance, carries out a deed of the body by writing on the board, performs a deed of the mouth by talking to the audience, and does a deed of the mind by thinking about what is due to be said next. Each member of the audience, meanwhile, performs a deed of the body by sitting and listening, deeds of the mind by thinking about what's being said, and possibly a deed of the mouth if they ask a question or end up chuckling at a joke that the lecturer throws in there. Our minds, mouths, and bodies are constantly at work performing deeds from morning till night. The most active of the three, however, is our minds. From second to second, we are evaluating and processing everything we see, hear, and interact with, as well as giving thought to our goals and our ever-changing physical and emotional state. Jumping from thoughts like awe, that person's a cutie pie, to I don't ever want to see that moron again, to what do I do to make them see my worth? To few, I'm sleepy. Our minds are always moving a mile a minute. We don't always outwardly express what we think, but every single one of those thoughts counts as a deed or action. So then, of the three kinds of actions, which do you think Buddhism considers to be the most important? It's actually the actions of the mind. The deeds of the mind are considered more important than the deeds of the body and mouth. Usually, we'd consider the deeds of the body and mouth to be more important because of how they can affect other people. If we're not careful, we can end up hurting people, causing them trouble, or worse, perhaps even something so bad that it gets us arrested. There are all sorts of laws regulating what we say and do because of this. And if we do end up being put on trial for something, the most important matter will be whether we actually did the thing we're being accused of or not. No one is going to arrest us for thinking about doing something bad. It's only if we act on that thought or verbally express it that we might get in trouble. Even outside of the law, however, we will be judged based on how moral our words and actions are. People generally look down on those who make threats or wish death upon others, for instance, because that is considered harmful behavior and therefore immoral. If instead you make a habit of saying nice things to others, you will be considered a good person. Once again, though, that's all based off of your outward behavior and not on your thoughts. No one can look into your mind and call you out for thinking terrible things, after all. In fact, most people would likely agree that as long as you keep bad thoughts to yourself and don't act on them, they don't really matter. Buddhism, however, takes the opposite stance, that your thoughts are what matter most of all. Perhaps you haven't actually killed anyone or said out loud that you hoped some particular person would just die, but having thoughts along these lines is a serious misdeed in Buddhism. If we compare the law, morals and ethics, and Buddhism to one another, it could be said that the law is like the naked eye, morals and ethics are like a magnifying glass, and Buddhism is like an electron microscope. If you look at the palm of your hand with your naked eye, it will seem fairly clean. If you look at it under a magnifying glass, you might find some specks of dirt you hadn't noticed before. If you look at it under an electron microscope, you will see that it is crawling with germs and gunk. In much the same way, while morals and ethics might side-eye you for some things that the law doesn't recognize as an issue, Buddhism is far stricter and more thorough in its scrutiny than either of the two. Even someone who seems legally and morally good will be shown up as impure when seen through the precise and exacting lens of Buddhism. After all, if you're looking all the way into someone's thoughts, is it really likely you could genuinely state them to be good based on what you see? What sets Buddhism distinctly apart from commonly accepted ways of thinking is this paramount emphasis on the deeds of the mind. Why, then, does Buddhism consider the deeds of the mind to be so exceedingly important? Let's examine the reasons. The reason why Buddhism places so much importance on the mind is that the mind is what sets the mouth and body into motion. It is your thoughts that make you say things and do things. Words come out of your mouth because you thought them, and your body performs actions because you thought of doing those too. In this way, your mind is the commander of your body and mouth. The reason why you're watching this video right now is that you decided to see what it was about, right? And you're still here because you've decided to keep watching and not click off onto another video. Whenever you say things out loud, that too happens because you had the thought to do so. Of course, certain disorders can lead to the mouth and body acting oddly, such as in the case of sleepwalking, where a person may move around and even talk while actually being asleep and unaware, or Tourette syndrome, which causes a person to make vocal sounds or movements involuntarily. However, under usual circumstances, everything that you say or do starts off as thoughts in your mind. The mind is like a master that gives orders to the mouth and body, and the mouth and body obey. Unless there is some problem with the connection between mouth, body, and mind, the mouth and body will always do as the mind commands. Now, if someone commits a crime because their boss ordered them to, of course, the perpetrator should go to prison, but the boss has to be held all the more accountable for being the reason why the crime was committed in the first place. No crime would have been committed if the boss hadn't commanded it. In the same way, if the mouth or body has committed a bad deed, the biggest responsibility falls onto the mind, which ordered this misdeed to be done. The mouth may be guilty of having said things that upset people, or the body might be guilty of having done things that physically harmed people. But the mind is in the wrong all the more so for having been what made the mouth say horrible things or move the body to act violently in the first place. To add to this, if we find ourselves deeply hurt by what someone has said to us, what causes us that pain is not only the harsh words themselves, but the intent with which they were said. Knowing that someone thinks that way of us and saw fit to tell us so cuts us to our core. If someone cheats on us, it is less so the physical action that breaks our heart, but more the fact that our partner made the decision to betray us in this way. While we cannot directly see what is in someone's mind, their words and actions can show to us how much or how little they think of us. And that is, ultimately, what is most important to us, more so than the words or actions themselves. All of this shows how significant the mind and our thoughts actually are, and why Buddhism places so much emphasis on deeds of the mind. Now, what is wrong with the idea that as long as you don't act on bad thoughts, they don't really matter? Well, you see, the way we think actually affects and shows through in both our words and actions, even if we're not directly acting on bad thought. How so? Well, imagine you live by a river and there is a paint factory upstream. If the paint factory dumps red ink upstream, the water in the river outside your house will be turned red too. The same goes for if the factory dumps blue ink, you'll end up with an unnaturally blue river outside your house. In this way, the downstream part of the river is affected by what is being put into the river upstream. You might try your best to remove the red or blue-dyed water from the section of the river outside your house, but it will be in vain because the ink won't actually stop polluting the water as long as the factory keeps dumping it upstream. If you want to have clear waters flowing outside your house again, you'll have to actually go and demand that the factory stop dumping ink into the river at once. Only once the source of the problem is dealt with will the problem itself be fixed. The mind is like the upstream part of the river, while the mouth and body are like the downstream part of the river. What's in your mind will inevitably color your words and actions. If you despise someone, for instance, or if you like them a lot, it will find a way to show through in what you say and do, no matter how much you may try to hide it. Alternatively, if your child tells a lie or shoplifts, and you simply shout at them not to do that without clarifying why, they're most likely to just figure out how to lie better or get better at not being caught doing bad things. If instead you really instill in them why it's wrong to do what they did and have them self-reflect, they're much more likely to be genuinely sorry and avoid a repeat of what they did. Not having a firm sense of why something is wrong in our minds will mean we see no reason not to say or do that thing. The root cause of everything we say and do is in the mind, as was expressed in the death poem of 16th century Japanese thief Ishikawa Goemon. Stony River. The sands of the shore may run out, but the seeds that make men thieves will never be exhausted. Ishikawa Goemon was well known for sneaking into rich lords' castles and stealing treasures from them, and is seen as somewhat of an outlaw hero today, to the point where there are even people who aspire to be a cool thief like him. After being caught, he was famously executed by being boiled to death in a cauldron along with his young son. A brutal execution method apparently chosen by the authorities to discourage people from imitating his behavior. It would appear they were not quite successful at that. Now, onto the poem itself. First of all, Stony River is the literal meaning of Ishikawa, the name of the thief. Even if all the sands of the river's shore were to run out, he said, there will never be an end to the seeds that make men thieves. In other words, even if the authorities made a spectacle of killing Ishikawa himself, people will never stop finding reasons to become thieves anyway. As long as there is that seed within people's hearts. As long as they have some motivation or rationalization for stealing. there will never be an end to thieves. Look at this modern world, and you will soon see that indeed thievery shows no sign of stopping whatsoever. Even with there being more advanced security measures than ever before, people still find ways to steal from one another because the seeds that make men thieves continue to take root in people's hearts. As long as the mind, the source of all words and deeds, is not guided away from the desire to perform bad actions, people will continue to say and do bad things. This is precisely why Buddhism places so much importance on the mind. If you want to control your words and deeds, you need to take control of your thought. For that, you need to properly observe and understand your mind. Buddhism evaluates people by the deeds we carry out with our minds, mouths, and bodies. But of those three, the deeds of the mind are of primary importance because all deeds of the mouth and body start off as thoughts in the mind. It is for this reason that to listen to Buddhism is to gain an awareness of one's own mind. Let us, then, listen intently to the Buddhist teachings so that we may learn in depth about the workings of our own minds and steer our thoughts and thereby our words and deeds in a positive and beneficial direction. Thank you for watching.